Welcome to XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve podcast, where real farmers share real insights and real results to help you improve your farming operation. And now, here's your host, Damian Mason.
Economic Fertility Challenge with XtremeAg and our friends at AgroLiquid. We're talking about, this time, double crop beans. That's right. My friends from the South commonly call them wheat beans, meaning after they harvest the wheat, they stick in the soybeans. Well, they did that this year at Chad Henderson's farm, and each of them put together a different prescription for the fertility. A budget of, let me get this right, $40 of foliar applied nutrition, and they could decide how to apportion that and make it work for them. Each of XtremeAg guys teamed up with someone from AgroLiquid. So as such, we've got Gabe Saxon. He's our guy that always has a Mississippi State Bulldogs. 4-0 Mississippi State Bulldogs, I might add. 4-0 Bulldogs as of this recording with their flag in the background. Stephanie Zelinko, the agronomist that is always doing these plots for us with AgroLiquid. And then I got Matt Miles, Chad Henderson, and Temple Rhodes. This was done at your property. What'd you do, Chad?
So, we talked about this and what we want to do a little different, what foliar program could we use, since it wasn't an in-furrow deal or a 2x2 deal. So we come up with this on double crop beans. As we've been chasing these, the phantom, let's say the phantom 80 bushel number of double crop beans, even sometimes a phantom 70 bushel number of double crop beans, but we know, a lot of times we say, well, the only thing that we can really affect them is plant date. The earlier you can get it planted, the more you're going to make. So we went at this a little different, and it wasn't an early program. We thinking, well, the most time to influence something is between R1 and R3. So we said, hey, let's just jump on with the R3 fungicide deal. That way, when we have this program and farmers look at it, they say, like, that's manageable. We can do that. We're making that pass already. This is not an extra pass through the field. So we got these things loaded up, and me and Gabe sit down and decided to go on and ram it to them just a little bit. So we put our program together, and then it went from there.
So, by the way, Stephanie, you're a winner. We've talked about this in other recordings. You teamed up with who on this one? Did you team up with Chad again?
Nope, I teamed up with Matt this time.
Okay.
How bad did we lose?
So, Stephanie, I don't want to say you're pulling an anchor, but I mean, all right, what'd you do? What'd you do with Matt?
So with Matt, we looked at the soil test, like we always do, make a program. And the one thing that stuck out probably more than anything else was Chad's low magnesium levels on the farm. And magnesium is one of those nutrients that's very hard to manage because from the fertility point, it doesn't play well with others. So you can't mix that and have a long-term storage, even with the AgroLiquid products. And so coming up with a way other than a lime source to manage magnesium is really hard. So what we did is we just came up with a program that focused nitrogen, calcium, and then we were able to add magnesium in. So it was an extra step for Chad because we couldn't mix it all in one tote and send it in the springtime.
You focused on nitrogen on soybeans? That's what I just heard?
Yep, we put a little bit of nitrogen in, some calcium, and then magnesium.
Are people right now that are not as agronomically astute as you shaking their head and saying, no, you don't need to put nitrogen out there for soybeans, even though it's coming in after a wheat crop?
Yeah, they could. There's a lot of different theories. Do you need nitrogen or not? We're pushing for 80 bushel beans. So any help we could give them, I thought some extra nitrogen was a push in that right direction.
It really makes me proud that Stephanie and Matt would start there because, that means that they actually thought we had potential to get there. Most of the time, if you're, anything under that, what do we say? Anything under that 70 bushel, 60, 70 bushel late season needs a little push of it. So thank y'all. Because most of the time people's like, ain't no need next. He can't get there in any way.
Temple, we want to win.
Temple, what'd you do? What'd you do for your soybean thing on at Chad's place?
Well, I mean, down in Chad's area, down in the south, and Matt's area as well, it's really hard to push a double crop soybean because they're racing so hard. Where do you try to go in and make a difference? That was kind of what I was, and I hate to say this because I always kind of follow the same thing, and I always kind of stick with phosphorus. But the reason that I definitely went phosphorus into this was because I want to give that plant some more energy. You know, phosphorus really pushes energy. There's a lot of phosphorus use in the plant's life cycle in, you know, the reproductive stages. So I thought if we fell short on anything, maybe it would be phosphorus, and maybe we could jumpstart that plant and give it a little bit more energy. Maybe it would help pull in some of the other nutrients. So that's kind of what I stuck with. But again, like Chad will tell you and Matt will tell you both, when you talk about double crop soybeans, like up here, we can make a difference because our season is so much longer to grow, like because we don't get heat. You know, it's not that we have a longer growing season. Our growing season is different. That when it gets hot like that, like the crop races so hard to get to the end, and you can't stop that process. So it is definitely a challenge. Like what we can do with micronutrients up here is very different than what you do in the South. So it was a challenge for me to try to think about what exactly can I do to try to put more things into that plant and drag more things in. So I kind of stuck with phosphorus is what I kind of thought.
I want to throw that out there since Stephanie's a Michigan person real quickly to tee off of what Temple just said. There's no double crop soybeans in northern Indiana where I am. Generally, it's because the wheat comes off later, beginning of July, and so you run out of moisture and you run out of heat units. I think are the reasons we don't do double crop soybeans where I am or where you are, Stephanie. Different story in Alabama where Chad is. It's the battle against heat. It's not an issue of even fertility up here. I don't think it's an issue of we run out of season, we run out of moisture. If they can take care of the heat, and obviously if it's irrigated, then the nutrition is the issue.
Yeah, certainly. We definitely run out of time is our biggest factor in the north. But, you know, for everybody else in the South, you know, it's that managing of those environmental conditions and making sure that the fertility there, if the, you know, environment works out, that we have the rainfall, the moisture or irrigation to get us there.
Gabe, you haven't said anything yet. You're kind of like your Mississippi State Bulldogs. Come in underrated. Nobody expects anything out of them. You know, they're an also-ran. You're gonna bang this up, aren't you?
Well, I mean, Chad and I had a few discussions. We did not put the magnesium in there. We actually did go after a little bit of nitrogen later on. We focused on potassium and some of the micronutrients, just looking at what the plant needs at that time in its life cycle. So potassium is going to help regulate a lot of things, and stress is one of them in the plant. So we know that we're potassium hogs down here in the South, just about everything. And then as we started to look at the calcium and boron and other things, we were just talking about how do we keep the stress down? How do we keep the pods on? How do we fill them and do that? So that was kind of the way that we looked at it, and that's why we threw the micronutrient package at it. We did split some stuff off and add a little bit more. And then the fun part was we threw some molly at the end, and I don't know that helped us or not. Chad doesn't have a happy face on his and assumed we lost, so I don't know.
No, you know, it looks real good, you know, Gabe. They're changing color, so we hadn't gathered them, you know, and we're in the middle of the game here still. So, but we got it done, and, you know, the magnesium wasn't a problem. You know, it come in here, and like I said, I want to applaud y'all because Stephanie sends this stuff, Gabe sends it in here, and it comes in these totes like Temple was talking about, and it's just mixed up, you know, and it has their names on it. We make sure we get the program right, and it had on the box of the mag for Matt and Steph, do not add till you see. You know, it was one of the don't play with me, and I'm like, ooh. So, but I want to talk just a second about how we laid this out. This actual trial was laid out on top of the field day that was last year, and we had part of it that we made one pass in a certain part of the field where we have that to run soil samples on or run tissue samples on or sap or whatever we need. And then the other part of the field is a 10-acre trial. So for you that's listening, you know, this is not a one pass deal. You know, it's 40 acres in this thing, and it's 10, 10, and 10, and then a check, obviously, but it's always a good experiment with this stuff, and it's always, you know, run pretty well, and it's eye-opening to see.
Your expectation, 80 bushel beans, as you said, on double crop, what's normal?
You know, a lot of times we're going to land in that range of anywhere from 62 to 68, 66, 64s. And if we can get these things planted the first week of June, we can touch that 70. Well, these beans was actually planted, I think, on the 4th or 5th of June is a plant date on these. And we got a rain and got them going. You know, it ain't always the fact of, I planted them first week of June. No, the clock starts when they come out of the ground. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of when the day starts. So if we're not planting them into moisture, then we're going to water them as soon as we plant them. We're going to water them up because that's when the clock starts. And the soybean is kind of like a cucumber, or a cucumber is like a soybean, either one. But when it comes out of the ground, all it knows is what the daylight is. Where it's at, what it is, and it knows how fast you ramp as far as putting on pods or whatever.
It doesn't matter until it comes to the ground. So you said all these treatments went on between R1 and R3? Is that what you said?
They actually went on at R3 with a fungicide application. Okay. That's correct. Okay. And Temple didn't get the fungicide, but I did. And Matt got a half for H, But anyway, we're good to go.
All right. What do you expect out of this, Stephanie? Since you're the one that conducts all these, what do you expect to see?
Well, I'm gonna think that the combine's going to tell the story, but I'm going to guess they're all going to be very similar. I'm not sure if we can influence a whole lot with fertility program late in the season. That's the goal, to see if we can. Everyone took a different approach. But in reality, I'm going to guess they're all going to yield within a bushel or two of each other.
So of all the trials we're doing, cotton and soy and stuff preseason, all that, what's really, you think this one's the one that is, frankly, got the least room to benefit?
I do, just because I don't think we know how to treat these double crop beans yet. And we're still trying to figure out what that missing piece. Mother Nature plays a bigger role than fertility. But what we have to do is figure out where to put fertility in if Mother Nature is giving us the best scenario. And so I think that's what we're going to find out is, are there certain nutrients that respond differently?
Gabe, regional knowledge, does it favor you? This is close to home court for you?
I hope it does. I'm with Stephanie. I think we've got to figure out, Mother Nature is going to throw the biggest curveball. So we've got to figure out what the plant's doing at that point in time and just see if we can help move it along.
So then I asked the question, if this comes out and there's no difference, do we do it next year at a $20 budget? Because we decided that, no offense, I know you're in the business of selling fertilizer, maybe on double crop beans, fertility isn't as important as we thought.
Yeah, I think for next year, or anyone that wants to look into this, you need to pick one nutrient. Here we kind of took a season or a full package approach. I think we need to figure out and go back a step of, is it phosphorus that we need? Is it the nitrogen that we need? And look at individual nutrients. So not so much a budget, but a nutrient to see which one's going to help push us through.
Matt?
I think, I don't want to cut in here. Sorry, Matt, but I disagree. Because it all depends on where you are, because in our area, there's a massive amount of difference that you can make with a late season treatment in double crop soybeans. I just truly believe that it is all weather related, and maybe it is a south thing. But what happens if we find that piece, that one piece that we need in the south by taking all these different avenues? Look at what Stephanie and Matt did. They put in late season nitrogen. Well, a soybean, can only nodulate enough for about 70 to 80 bushels an acre anyway. What happens if that late season nitrogen was a missing link? I never thought about that until they just got talking about it. What happens if that's the missing link and that pushes you to, 80 bushel on double crop irrigated beans, and you didn't realize that the way that crop raced, it didn't have enough time to make enough nodulation where it could make its own nitrogen, and now you gave it just a little touch of something and it could finish the crop off. There's pieces and parts that I think that we're going to find in this. I think that we're going to find something.
Well,
I gotta go to Matt. Poor Matt's been sitting there, and I want to hear what he has to say about this. But go ahead, Chad.
No, I want to hear Matt. Go ahead.
Well, I was sitting there 20 minutes and I hadn't got called on yet. So I've got 45 things to say. So I'm going to be like Temple. We first started XtremeAg was during was our early years was during when I was still growing wheat and wheat beans. It might have been the same year as a wheat wager. I think it was when I did 8 different trials in a wheat field trying to find something. And I think Temple's right on the heat. I've tried everything in the world, and Chad has too, to influence double crop beans. Hadn't been able to do it. Now, have we made 80 bushel on double crop beans? Yes. Chad, you can go into your operations center and you can zone out your darkest green on your yield map, and you're going to get 80 to 85 bushel maybe on 3 or 4 acres in a 100-acre field when you hit those top greens. So there is something there, but every time we went back and looked at that, it's a little higher fertility or a little better soil. To be able to do that, replicate that on a total field, even one field, I've never been able to do that. Chad hit the nail on the head. We're going to be between 60 and 70 bushel on our wheat beans, no matter if we put 55 products on there or 3. Now, we've got a grower standard practice on wheat beans. We're going to do either way. There's certain fertility, potassium, different things that the wheat beans going to respond to. You can make 50 bushel wheat beans if you don't do anything, and you can make 60 to 70 bushel wheat beans if you treat them within reason of how you treat your full season beans. So there's advantages in yield increases by just doing normal agronomy, right? What we're trying to do here is propel that to a different level, to that 80 bushel level. I'm excited about the mag and the calcium. That's something that I hadn't done a lot of, and we know what calcium does to a plant. So if we can get those nutrients flowing a little better, I'm hoping the calcium and the mag may make a difference. I'm like Stephanie. If there's more than 3 bushel difference in this, we've been looking for that magic bullet. I'll be very surprised if we get, one of us come out of here with 10 or 12 bushel or even 8 bushel more than the other one. Hopefully it's me and Stephanie, but I've done this for a long time trying to influence wheat beans. The heat, when we're planting, the soil temperature when we plant these beans are going to be anywhere from 85 to 90 degrees. So if he don't get out of there quick, he'll spoil before he even gets out of the ground. So he's already sick when he comes up, because it's, everybody wants a warm soil temperature, but they don't want a hot soil temperature. If you walked out in my sandy fields barefooted while you were planting wheat beans, you would blister your feet. Your skin would blister. That's how hot that sand is. You've been to the beach, you know what I'm talking about. So influencing that heat, maybe we do something here, but I'm very pessimistic that one of us is going to be out there, 6 lengths ahead at the end of the race.
Well, you said you had 40 things you're going to be like Temple. Is that all? I feel responsible because I didn't get to you soon enough, and now you're making me feel bad. You know what? I'm wearing the hat. He always makes me feel guilty, Stephanie.
Sorry.
All right, Chad, you're getting ready to hop in here on this. So the point is, it's done at your place, and we got a lot of expectation. That the reality is, we don't think we're going to vary too much from one end of the spectrum to the other on this. What would change it? What if you didn't have your $40 budget?
No, I really like the fact that for me, the pull out of this may not always be fertility, but it's all the minors that we're talking about. We're talking about mag, we're talking about calcium. Those are things like it's easy for us to go out here and say, oh, I'm going to put some more phosphorus on, or man, I'm going to go out here and put some potassium acetate on, and we're going to get it done. Well, it's harder for us to dig into these others that may be the missing link, So that's what I'm more excited about, is that. And the beans do look really good. They've had a good year. We hadn't had that stupid heat all year long. Some of our corn yields in the South, y'all can see that. So I think we got a good shot of raising. I think they're going to land in the 72 to 76 range. I think they're going to be really good beans. We've kept the water to them. So like I said, the leaves are dropping now, and we're going to tell the tale.
And the thing is, we didn't start out with a deficient soil, so when you're starting out with a soil like Chad's got, that's already got pretty good base fertility to it. I say this all the time on full season bean. You can get a guy from 50 to 70 way easier than you can get a guy from 80 to 100. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you can manipulate with fertility from 60 to 80 than from 80 to 100. Well, we're starting out with soils that are pretty damn good soils. That even makes it more of a challenge. Yeah. I just don't think God wants a wheat bean to be 80 bushel beans. So if with the kind of base fertility we got here, it's a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard to move. It's hard to move the needle when you're already pretty close to the end. It's the last tenth of a second or something that Chad's trying to get.
We made 82 bushel one time, and then before that, my record was like 76. And it's just like Matt says, this is a 2.5 acre grid, or you know what I'm saying. But man, it's just hard. Anytime you get over that 70 range, because about 60 to 62, it'll hit you right in the nose with normal fertility, irrigated.
Gabe, last word. This is your thing, man.
I think you just need to set the expectations, pay attention to what's going on around you, and understand the fertility that's in the soil, and then pay attention to that so you can kind of feed through the plant.
All right, Temple, I appreciate you being on here. You're in the field right now, and I know that this thing has to bother you. I didn't really give Gabe last word. I'm giving it to you. The thing is, being put on a budget on all these economic fertility challenges, they're putting you on a budget. Does it bother you a little bit? Does it bother you a bit, like you're handcuffed?
Yeah, because there was a lot of things that I kind of wanted to put in there, and I just couldn't get inside that budget range. But I still think, I mean, if a $40 budget as a foliar treatment, it's pretty stout, So if we can't make a difference with this, in my opinion, I don't know that we make a difference in the South. But I mean, with that program that's what I use, and it makes a tremendous difference. Now, the difference is you go back and you talk about soil fertility, and Matt talked about getting guys from 50 to 70 bushel versus, 75, 80 to 100. The big difference is there's a couple things. One, I've already told you that in the South, they get the heat, and if they get the moisture, their plants race, and they're trying to get to the end. Well, the same thing happens in a soybean, not necessarily in corn, but if you have high fertility in the soil, soybeans race through vegetation, and if they race through vegetation, you don't produce as good of a soybean crop at the end, because their requirements to produce pods is in the end. So if you have high fertility, your plant's going to race, and you're going to get a vegetative, long, leggy plant, and then you get the heat and the moisture that you're going to get in the South, sometimes, especially with irrigation, then you got the same thing again. So you double both of them up, and you're going to go out there and you're going to look at them soybeans, and Chad's going to look at them and be like, man, they're beautiful. They're waist, chest high. They're awesome. But you can actually do more, and you can make more of a difference with foliar treatments when your soil fertility is lower, when you're in a situation like they're at in the South.
Yeah, and doing it at the end.
Yep.
All right, that's Temple Rhodes, Chad Henderson, Matt Miles, they're the XtremeAg guys, joined by Gabe Saxon and Stephanie Zelinko with AgroLiquid. We're doing economic fertility challenges. This one was on soybeans. The goal was 80 bushels on double crop beans, meaning after wheat. A big challenge, and you can stay tuned to find out what ends up being the results when the combines roll. We're going to give you all that results. Also, check out all the videos these guys shoot in the field, as well as past episodes of Cutting the Curve. There's hundreds of all of those videos out there. It's a free library of information at XtremeAg.farm. Until next time, thanks for being here. If I want to learn more about this, where do I go, Gabe and Stephanie? I go to
agroliquid.com.
Got it. Till next time, thanks for being here. I'm Damian Mason with XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve.
That's a wrap for this episode of Cutting the Curve. Make sure to check out XtremeAg.farm for more great content to help you squeeze more profit out of your farming operation.